but it was as if Jesus reached down to my chin to lift up my chin to look at me. It was the tenderness that I felt in his response. And lift up my chin to look at me and to kind of say, look me in the eye, like look into the very depths of my person when I look at you. And he said, I want your yes to go to me.
You're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone. You're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone.
Welcome back to This Whole Life. It is another beautiful Easter episode.
Woo!
And our topic could not be more on point of this glorious season. Welcome, my love.
Oh, it's good to be in the resurrection.
And sister, welcome to This Whole Life. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a joy to be with you both.
Yeah. So, folks, today we have an incredible gift. We have Sister Faustina Maria Pia of the Sisters of Life joining us for this episode on trust. Sister was raised in Somers, Connecticut, and is the youngest of 8 children. She studied human services and nursing before entering the Sisters of Life in 2009 and professing final vows in 2018. Sister Faustina currently resides in New York and serves as the local superior of Annunciation Mother House. Several years ago, in her own struggle to trust the Lord, she received an inspiration to compose a prayer, the Litany of Trust, and subsequently authored a book entitled Jesus, I Trust in You, a 30-day retreat with the Litany of Trust. And that's maybe, some of the ways most listeners are familiar with you, sister, is through that litany, through that retreat book. So we are so blessed to have you and to be able to break open this topic with you today. Before we get going on the topic of trust, would you be willing to share a high and hard from your life lately?
Sure. Golly, a high, I would say this past week I got to visit some of our older sisters. We're a younger community, but we have some older sisters who live about an hour and a half north of me in Catskill, New York. And so that's always a joy, the way they tease us and just to be with them. It shows the perspective of our life that is just so rich. And it's a treasure to see sisters who have gone before you that have made this commitment and have been faithful to it for decades more. So that was a real joy. A hard, well, there's different varying degrees of hard. Well, one would be, I recently got off coffee and I'm still feeling that, the effects of that.
Sister, God bless you.
And, we'll see how long it perdures, but also a growing pain of a growing community, which is, it's a blessing, but we're just in a lot of construction phases. And here at our mother house, which I'm overseeing, we have a bunch of different construction things going on. So we're getting very used to loud drills and hammers and dust, all that kind of thing. So it's a lot to manage, but it has a very good side too. And it's exciting as well.
Yeah.
That is exciting. Probably a departure from normal religious life, I would imagine.
Yes, a little bit harder to pray sometimes with all the noise, but it's passing. So.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's beautiful. That's exciting. Yep. Ladies, continue.
Yeah. I'm going to say high and hard, all wrapped up in raising teenagers. Sister Faustina, we have 7 children. Our oldest 2 are teens, 15 and 13, a daughter and then a son. And the hard is much more interiorly. They actually objectively are like, they're really making it easy on us. Like, I'm kind of worried that they've lulled us into some like false sense of security that we know what we're doing.
A little rope-a-dope teenage-wise, yeah.
But the interior process of like knowing how much to support, how much to intervene, how much to check up on and how much space to give, how much to let the natural consequences play out. Like just that, it's a full-time job up in your head. And, praise God that Pat and I are parenting together on it and we can consult together. 'Cause I would just be, just a tangle of knots if I was on my own on this, but that is a definite hard and just the space they take up mentally. To be, considering what they need. And each one is so different. The high is that they really are so fun. Like it's just a different type of parenting than being with littles, which is like what I thought we would do. I thought that's what it always would be. Like I never thought we would be at this place, or we'd be talking about college and talking about, varsity sports and talking about goals and savings accounts and investments and, just like, it's so fun. And I think that was really, made clear this past week. Our daughter hosted a Marvel movie night, watching one of the Avengers, which was it, Endgame?
Endgame. Yep.
Endgame movie watch. And so I think we had like 8 girls and 6 boys like at our house in our living room, eating pizza, popcorn, M&Ms, watching this movie together.
Yep.
And just being like, this is so awesome. Like just such a gift. That we get to have even just a small influence on them, and that we get to have our family be impacted by these awesome kids. So, raising teenagers, not for the faint of heart, and also such a privilege.
Yep. Pretty beautiful. Yep.
Yeah.
I am a little shocked that your hard wasn't getting over shingles recently.
Oh yeah, I have
Feels like
blocked
that was
that
hard.
so hard. Like I don't know, sister, if you've ever had an experience with shingles or know anybody, but like I am telling you all, if ever that diagnosis befalls you, reach out to me and I will be at your door. I will clean your toilets. I will make you dinner. It was awful, but you're right. I have blocked it.
I am married to a very tough woman, and to see her kind of knocked out in physical pain is really unique and odd to me. But she made it through. We made it through. It's all good.
Here I am.
Oh
Here
my
I am,
goodness.
Yeah, was that your hard? No.
It was a hard. Yeah, watching you suffer. That's never fun. I think my other hard is I just had it and then I lost it because I got caught up in shingles. My hard is that like you mentioned, Kenna, this episode will release near Easter 2026, but we are recording in the dead middle of Lent, and the beginning of Lent, similar to your coffee hard, sister, has been a little difficult for me because I have distanced myself from all of my very natural coping mechanisms, and none of them are evil, but also none of them are necessarily serving me, and maybe I rely on them a little more than I rely on the Lord sometimes, which is problematic. So getting away from sugar and frivolous watching of things on weeknights and fast food that I don't need. That means that Lent has been harder for me than usual, not because the content I'm going through is more difficult, but I can't meet it with the sugar necessary to combat the difficulty. So it's been hard, and we've had lots of good conversations, and I've had to explain to Kenna that my life is difficult, but it's not her fault or anyone else's. It's just that I can't have the candy bars that I want. So that's a challenge, but a good one. My high is that a week and a half ago, I got to travel down to the Diocese of Springfield, Cape Girardeau in southern Missouri. And I will fully admit, with apologies to the good people of southern Missouri, that when I received the request to go speak there, I had never heard of that diocese in my entire life.
Did you Google it to see if you were being
I wondered a little bit if I was going to a different country, because Cape Girardeau sounds vaguely Caribbean, but it was not Caribbean. It was southern Missouri, and it was just beautiful. It's a very rural diocese, right? Where Missouri meets Arkansas. They're really Springfield, Missouri is the only big-ish city there, and there are tons of tiny towns, little mission churches. So I got to spend some time with the youth ministers of the diocese, and it was just a blessing. I love traveling. I love seeing new parts of the country. I got to go for a little hike near a natural spring in southeast Missouri, but mostly it was just the people who, many of them are volunteers working in parish ministry, and they just love the church. They love these kids. They want to help them know Jesus as best they can. And it was a real gift. So it was great to be with them.
Yeah.
But great to be back too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grateful for you sharing that. And I will avoid the shingles for you, my love.
For me?
Going forward.
Did not mean to make that about me. It's okay.
No. Well, this episode today is about trust, and no surprise, because again, Sister Faustina, you've given the church this gift through your prayer of the Litany of Trust and the retreat book. And so before we really, dive into that deep topic, deep psychological and spiritual topic, I'm imagining that you have been on a journey of trust with the Lord throughout your life, leading you toward your vocation as a religious sister. And can we just begin with that? Just whatever you're willing to share with us around your vocation story, your background, and this theme of the Lord's trust, calling you deeply into giving your life to Him and to His church.
Sure. It's a story that I love to share because it really reveals God's mercy, which always is confirming for me to share it. But also, I think it applies to all of our lives, and we have different circumstances, but really the truth is the same. So I grew up in a Catholic family. My parents are beautiful, suffered a lot in their young lives, but both went to the Lord and found a solace in Him. So they were on their faith journey raising us, but really had their eyes on the Lord. So I'm very grateful for that. And one of the reasons that I have a devotion to St. Faustina is because my mother had a conversion when she was a teenager. It was a reversion, really. She had been baptized but didn't go to church. Through this Polish sister, St. Faustina, was just, not canonized at that time. She had read a little bit of the pamphlet as a teenager and instantly experienced the love of God. She didn't grow up with her father, so it was like a father's love that was meeting her, and it was undeniable. She couldn't get over that God loved her, that He cared about her. When she had, seen so much suffering and difficulty, she honestly thought He didn't care. So that was really like a little gem in my mom's heart, this belief that God was merciful, that He loved us, that suffering didn't rule that out, that He was present in the midst of that He was working for her good in the midst of that. And so she treasured that. And I think that was really a compass for her life that would bring her through many storms, but also this devotion to St. Faustina. And so she named me Faustina, and I am the youngest of 8. I have 4 older sisters. So I was like, Mom, you really took a chance. So you get that name in. But I'm very grateful because it is so intentional. God is so intentional. And so I received that from my birth. And of course, like many things, you have to grow into it. So I knew that my patron was this Polish saint, 3rd grade education, Jesus was appearing to her, mystic. And it was a bit overwhelming, and I didn't feel super connected to her. Although I did grow up with a mercy picture in our house, so that was a part of my life. And at the same time, I experienced suffering in my young life too. And I think that was a real disorienting moment, of a time where you're just trying to make sense. God loves me, but how does this fit together? And why would He allow certain things? And what am I supposed to do? And I think as I was growing up, I believed that God loved me, but I didn't feel it in a deep heart way at times when I faced that suffering, that interior pain. And so what became as something that I didn't like, or I was sad about, or that I was hurt, because I didn't really deal with it, became something that ultimately became, I don't really like myself. And even like there's this kind of disdain towards myself. Now, I was loved by a lot of people, but I couldn't, because of that block, really receive the depth of God's love for me. And I didn't know how important it was to open up my heart and to share that, But God is so good. He's so faithful that, as I grew and got older, I would open the Diary of St. Faustina here and there, and it was like a healing balm, little pieces of it, because I recognized in Jesus's words this love that was pursuing a soul that was very weak. I mean, St. Faustina really doubted. God He would appear to her, and she would still kind of say, well, I wasn't sure after you left, like if I should really share with the confessor what you said. And he said, I told you to share that, and he would be so tender with her. So I held on to that was really true. And it gave me this courage to start to open my heart to God. I'm not joking. It sounds so simple, but it was really a life-changing grace when I was in college. Just putting down the diary, walking into a chapel, and sitting there not knowing what to say, but letting the silence kind of penetrate my heart, and then slowly being open with God, like really talking to Him about things. Again, it sounds so simple, but I was scared to do that, and I didn't really know what was going to happen. And as I did that more and more, I felt this kind of quiet, still peace meeting me in that space that I didn't love about myself, that I really hated, or that I wished was otherwise, and that gave me courage to continue and to keep, delving in and to be more honest in my confessions and to make more time for prayer. And as I was doing this, my heart was not only becoming more alive, but it was thirsting to be with this person, this person, Jesus, and I, still not, still on the journey for sure, but I felt this experience of God calling me in my interior to be his own. As a sister, I didn't expect that. I wasn't thinking that. I have an older sister who became a sister, so I was like, wow, she's the nun in the family,
Yeah, she checked
Sure.
that
Yeah,
box.
great. I'm so happy. That's exciting. And then at 4 years later, I was like, wait a second, something's happening in my heart. So I joined the Sisters of Life, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. I felt like it was such a moment of deepening in my identity. This is who I am, God knowing my heart more than I did. And yet still on this journey of trust, I can share a little bit about this, the litany. I think it ties in with this, if that's okay. But as I entered, it's these new thresholds of trust, I think, are a part of all our journeys. We kind of deepen in a relationship, like a normal relationship of greater intimacy, And a few years into my religious life, I experienced another suffering that kind of brought up some of my previous suffering that I guess wasn't resolved, how this is. And I almost had, I hate to say it out loud, but I almost had this sense of like, how dare you, God? Like, you knew this would be the hardest thing for me. And now this is kind of something that I have in my life that I have to kind of deal with and make sense of. So I had this really grappling moment. I've been in religious life for a few years. I'm happy as a sister. I know that this is what God wants from me. And yet this suffering is now making everything kind of come up. And there's all these questions that haven't been there in my heart. And so this was a real moment of pleading with the Lord and now meeting him in that silence of my heart and not getting a strong response back, kind of feeling like I'm in the dark. And I really was asking Jesus, please give me clarity. And I want to say that during this time, I really wanted to do what God wanted, but I was a little bit upset at him, unfortunately, because I felt very alone. And that was one of my biggest fears. I felt very alone in it. And yet I had to make some movement. There wasn't something I could just passively kind of receive. I had to make decisions and actions and behaviors, So I'm asking for clarity. Nothing's coming. Months go by, and I'm really interiorly getting so thin. I feel so alone. And one day I was praying, it was close to 6 months of this, and I was actually in my room in the convent. We have a small little room, and it has a little crucifix on the wall, nothing else. And I'm looking at this crucifix, and I really found that to be so beautiful afterwards when I thought about it. I was looking at this crucifix, and I was having this conversation. I hadn't lost that, this honest dialogue with the Lord. And I don't remember the exact kind of words, but when I went back to think of what would kind of capture the sentiments of this conversation, it was like, Jesus, like if I just knew what you were doing, what this was about, then I would say, yes, I would go with it. But how can this possibly be for my good? How can this possibly be good for others? And what are you about in this? Like, I've trusted you before, but this doesn't make sense. And it was the first kind of strong response I really recognized in several months. And it was so clear that I almost visualized the response, even though I didn't see anything or hear anything with my ears. But it was as if Jesus reached down to my chin, to lift up my chin to look at me. It was the tenderness that I felt in his response. And lift up my chin to look at me and to kind of say, look me in the eye, like look into the very depths of my person when I look at you. And he said, I want your yes to go to me, not to a bunch of circumstances. Like, I can explain this and then you would say yes, but no, say yes to me. And I knew in that moment what love was, what trust was. I was asking for clarity. He didn't give me clarity. he gave me the answer that surpasses that. He gave me this beautiful interior grounding that made me say, oh my goodness, this is what I want. I don't need to know what you're doing. I need to know that you're doing it and that you love me, that you see me, that we're doing something together, and that as miserable as I am, as sinful as I am, you want me part of your mission, and you want to be espoused to me. Like this is what you desire. You desire this little choosing, my choice of you, my entrusting myself to you in this wholehearted way. So I felt so seen, and so felt so affirmed in that, and it deepened everything that I'd ever known of him, of course, but it cast this beautiful light that in an instant I knew, with my whole being, I said, this is how I want to live my life. This isn't a moment that gets me through a tough spot. This is my way. This is my way. I want to live this way, and I want others to live this way, because I felt a freedom, like an instant, like I could go skydiving. Like, this is what it means to live without worrying about myself, without worrying about all these things to figure out. So that in those moments, which were very sacred, was when I had such this strong thought, write the Litany of Trust. And I'd never been thinking about writing a prayer. I don't write prayers. But I needed that. And God knew that moment that was so beautiful should be articulated in some way to help me live it, this desire to live it, And so I just took out my journal, and I, 10, 15 minutes, I just wrote it. It wasn't a struggle or very heady. It just kind of flowed. I wasn't thinking, what is trust and how do I need to live it and what blocks trust? I wasn't having any of those thoughts.
Yeah.
I was just going.
Wow.
And afterwards, I just felt such gratitude, because I felt this hope that maybe even I, who've struggled to trust, like maybe I could live this, and maybe I could share this with others, because it has given me such joy, has given me such peace, such freedom. So I'm so, so grateful. He's excelled in every way for me.
One of my questions was going to be kind of the process of creating this litany, and you already answered it for me. I was thinking through, like, was this something that, did the different lines, had those come from different personal prayers of yours over the years? Did it take 6 months? Was there some attentiveness to, like, well, we really should say something about our relationship with others, and we really should have a line about being beloved children of God? And what it sounds like it was inspiration in the true sense of, like, it was more Jesus and enough of Sister Faustina to make it truly your flavor, your experience. But it was true that it sounded like it flew, that it came out easily, that it
Flowed.
that it flowed. That's the word. Flowed. That it flowed easily once that prayer experience happened. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, it definitely does. And I was almost in kind of awe afterwards. I was like, wow, like, that's beautiful. And it's meeting this place, it's creating a place that I can meet Jesus in, to kind of continue this and deepen this. And when I go back on that journal from that year, flipping back pages, I see pieces of it, I'm like, wow, this anxiety or whatever, I see pieces of it, but there's no way that I think I could have done it by just thinking it through. And it really felt like I was in this space of God's love when it happened. It was like such a genuine experience of his goodness, It was just like, I can't think about it and not feel so loved, honestly. It was just such an experience of his love and a taste of the kind of life that he wants us to live. And the amazing thing for me was that my suffering didn't diminish. It wasn't like after that day, everything kind of cleared and now, wow, that was great. Nothing else changed. Nothing else changed, but my heart changed. My relationship with Jesus changed. And that made the difference. And then I saw things differently, and I wasn't afraid, and I felt like the power of his presence with me in it. Even if it wasn't a tangible thing, I just knew it. Like, there was a convicting moment. And And so that was for me even better. I was like, if he had lifted the suffering, I would have been hoping that would be the case. But honestly, it was better that he didn't, because the freedom that he wrought through that suffering was huge. And then he wanted to validate again the power of how much he wants us to trust him by making this prayer so fruitful. I saved it for about a year. I just prayed it by myself. I felt kind of vulnerable to share it, actually. But
Sure.
it was a year later, I was giving a talk on mercy, and I was in a church in New York, here in New York City, and it was a big young adult event. And I decided to end my talk, which was on God's mercy. It was Divine Mercy Sunday, and I decided to end it with this prayer. And so nobody had a copy of it, but I just said the first part, you're going to just pray, deliver me. And then the second part, Jesus, I trust in you. So I was leading them in this prayer, and we were before the Lord in the Eucharist at that point. So it was really powerful. And I just felt God being so pleased, and people kind of leaning their hearts towards him in trust, like making that honest effort to be like, oh, do I trust you? I want to trust you. Like, here's this prayer, And as I finished the prayer, I walked to the back of the church, and there's a line of people forming saying, can I get a copy of that prayer? And I was like, oh, I don't have that prayer anywhere except in my notebook here. So it was immediately something that I knew, this is so pleasing to God. This is so pleasing to God that people would trust him. That is what we, in a very real sense, have been made to do, to love in this way. So.
I think something that strikes me as you speak, Sister, is your reference to courage, and the courage it took to be open with the Lord, to speak plainly with him, and to really reveal your heart to him. And as a marriage and family therapist, I get to witness, in a family system often, people stepping out in courage to be known, to disclose some part of themselves to the spouse, to the child, to the parent, to the sister. And I would love for us to be able to talk a little bit about here. What is it that is so difficult for us in really letting ourselves be known? What is it that it does require this courage, this virtue? What humanly goes on in us that makes that a hurdle for us to step into that kind of intimacy? In your ministry, Sister Pat, in your ministry and experiences, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Well, it's interesting that the first invocation that God gave me for this prayer was from the belief that I have to earn your love. We're asking to be delivered from that. And it's an interesting thing that's first. And I'm glad it is, because I do think it's a huge block. We are so afraid of not being loved. I know that for me, that was a part of my story. Like, if I share this, how will that go? Will I be received? Will I be loved? So the vulnerability of, will I be loved, I think is a huge part of the courage piece. And, whether it be small lies that we can get into a habit of just to kind of make excuses for ourselves, to make ourselves look better, or, to bigger things like sharing things that really need to be shared. It really, I think, is this wrestling of this huge desire. As humans, we were made with this huge thirst to be loved and a huge thirst to love. And if somebody looks at me in a negative way, or if somebody treats me some way because I have been vulnerable, then it just confirms this lie, quote unquote, confirms this lie that, gosh, I really should just keep my mouth shut, and I should just show what's good on the outside, because I'll do anything to be loved. And with the women that we serve, but I think it's all of us. I mean, we're all human in that way, that will settle for a more superficial love, or a false love even, than take the risk of being rejected, or being hurt. And someone who has struggles with that disdain against ourselves, or the self-hatred, is going to that's going to be a huge hurdle to tackle, that vulnerability piece. And I think the little steps that somebody makes, that maybe, somebody who's more comfortable thinks that's not really being vulnerable, but for them, it's being hugely vulnerable. And those are real moments of a heroic effort, of kind of trying to share myself. And if those go well, then it's a huge, step along the way. But again, if it has been met with that, which a lot of people in our lives, we've experienced that, then it's really tough. So that's why I think trusting God is the biggest kind of first step, because there is a place that is safe to go when we open up our hearts. Like, we will be met with love and mercy. I think that's it's really crucial to go first, and opening our hearts with that courage needs to come a validation from a deep source, Jesus. So
Yeah. I was thinking earlier this morning too about how, I think for all of us sinners, it's difficult on some level to trust in God, certainly to trust fully in God. I think I would imagine more day to day that there are a lot of people walking through life who have a really difficult time trusting other people. And maybe it's because they've been really hurt and they are justifiably kind of self-protective. Maybe it's because they have some source of anxiety that they feel like if they say the wrong thing, like you said, sister, maybe they won't be loved. Maybe they'll be isolated and alone. Maybe they'll be judged and belittled, something like that. And I love this proposal that trusting in the Lord is a crucial first step to help us practice this experience of trust, because we're going to the God who can be trusted eternally in everything with unfailing, constant love. So we will never be disappointed by our trust in the Lord. And then it makes some sense that you can take that trust and apply it to fallen, sinful, broken human relationships where there will inevitably be some version of disappointment or betrayal or letdown, something like that, but that we can still respond in a way that's healthy and whole. I guess all that I suppose leads up to a question, sister, is if there have been any kind of common threads that you've seen that have helped yourself or any of the women that you work with to really trust in human beings in a more healthy and fruitful way. Are there practical things that people can do to not overextend themselves and not trust in those people who really might not deserve the trust that we have to offer them, but to really trust in a way that's set up for our good and for the good of healthy relationship?
that is a huge topic. And I do love it. I actually love the whole topic of like boundaries and like healthy relationships. I think it's great. It's a large topic, but I do describe trust. And if you've read the book that I wrote on the litany, it uses this visual, but I think it might be helpful to say out loud now. But I do like the visual of when you're describing trust as, picturing our hearts, this place that kind of keeps us alive. That's the very core of our being. And the Catechism describes the heart as the place of decision, the place of encounter, place of covenant. It's like our hidden center, okay? And to picture the heart with, an opening on either side, an opening to receive love, and then an opening to then give our love with, a space within that is for ourselves to keep, or not just, a tube. There's a reservoir there of love. And when I think about that image, it's helpful. It's helped me. It's definitely helped when I've described it to, women that we serve as well. But this thought of we are not meant to live life on our own, like this sense of we thrive, become alive with this flow happening, and when we're having a really hard day, what makes it harder is when we're shutting the flow down, and so describing like keeping our hearts open to receiving love. And I think that's what we were talking about. The safe place is starting with the Lord, because he is going to be merciful. He has this unconditional love for us, right? So when we go to confession, maybe the priest is grumpy, but there's tons of quotes, St. Faustina's diary alone, that Jesus works through whatever instrument, but his love is meeting us and gives us the peace. There's no peace in the world like making a good confession. Like, you cannot put a price tag on that. When you are right with God to the core of your being, wow. Okay, wow. And I don't care if that priest was nice to me. I mean, it's hard when there's a gruff answer. It's definitely, I've experienced, and heard stories of that. But that doesn't take away the fact of the grace that meets us in that place, that takes that burden off of us, like wipes that away from our conscience, right? So that openness to receiving the Lord's love is what gives us the courage to then give love that's not deserved, right? Like this person, wow, it's not really fair. I'm at work and she's not doing her end of the deal here, but I'm only going to have the grace to really love in that way that's undeserved when I've received an undeserved love, right? So I really think it's very hard to start just like giving what I haven't received in a way,
Sure.
If you have a great, family or great supports, we can start doing that. But when somebody's really struggling with trust, even those great supports might not break up the blockage, right? I think counseling is also, sometimes there's blocks that just counseling and therapy, you need some of that, right? But God's love is healing. And like, I can picture myself just going into the church, and sometimes talking to people on the street. I might never see them again. They're talking to me about, all the issues that they have with God and the pain in their life. I said, just sit in the back of a church, just spend some time with him. Like, I challenge them to spend 10 minutes, because God's power, it radiates in a way that's so powerful, right? And it keeps us coming back, so he can kind of gradually melt that space. But I think in trusting other people, they need to experience, we can be the Father's face of God's mercy. So I really think they need to experience that if they haven't in someone's life. There's been experiences that we are walking with women, they don't have a relationship with their mom, their dad, the father of the baby's out of the picture. They're really alone. And that's why they come to live with sisters who, they wouldn't necessarily prefer to. But we're the last resort, right? And so it's a privilege. We are honored that they've come. At the same time, we're getting to know each other. We don't really know each other, and we're experiencing a lot of intimate things like, childbirth and things like this. And they can articulate. I remember, a woman who, we had a very difficult situation, and her baby had to have surgery. We didn't know if the baby was going to survive. It was very scary for someone who this is the only person, this little child that I would have in my life, right? And now I'm going to lose them. And, being with her all day at the hospital through that surgery, that was very risky. And then at the end of the day, the surgeons coming in saying we were able to do it. We were able to do everything we could, that we wanted to. And so many people were praying. And I look over to this woman, and you know what she says to me? She says, "Sister, I learned something today." And I said, "What'd you learn?" And I thought she was going to say that, prayer works or something like that. She said that I don't have to do life alone anymore. And I was so moved by that answer, because that is all of our hearts, all of our hearts. We were made, if you look at the anatomy of a heart, it's just this flow that, it doesn't work on its own. It's feeding everything else, right? So I do like to ask these women, like, when they're having a hard day, are you closing your heart? Are you opening it? Like, are you able to say, God, help me receive the love of this person that's right in front of me? They're doing all these nice things for me. I don't want it. Like, what is that about? Like, let's talk about that, or, gosh, like this person didn't receive my love today in this small little favor that I did. Will I do something nice for them again, or will I just shut that off? Like, let's talk about that, because that ultimately hurts us, right? So I think that it's a little bit nuanced, because some situations are just harder. You can't just jump into loving and seeing how it goes. You need to be able to have somebody to talk to about it with, and kind of have some safe places to try it out, and ultimately have that relationship with the Lord grounding you.
I think I sense a lot of parallels, Sister, between the way you're speaking about trusting others as being ultimately a good for us, like for being the one who gives the trust, similar to how we talk about forgiveness. That like to hold on to resentment is to like drink the poison and hope the other person dies, or whatever that saying is. Like, similarly, I hear you saying like, yeah, maybe it's good for the relationship. Maybe it's good for the space between Pat and Kenna, that Kenna trusts Pat, but ultimately it's really good for Kenna's heart. Like, it's really good for her capacity to receive and to know and recognize the love of God when she is trusting of Pat. And I hadn't thought about it that way before, of like, yeah, we are actually made for this. We are made for this kind of trust, and to, again, not to diminish the circumstances and the situations and the woundedness, the betrayal, the abandonment, all the things that people have experienced that become these obstacles to trust, but to go, man, there's something in me that's not fully alive if I'm not stepping into this invitation. And again, back to that courage, like if I'm not asking the Lord and being real of like, I don't want to do this. Like it feels too hard. It feels too risky. That person doesn't feel worthy of, they don't feel like they've redeemed themselves from the last time they let me down or, whatever. But to say like, and yet, Lord, I trust that you made me for this. And so you can give the grace, right? Through the sacraments primarily, but like you can give the grace to make my heart tender, to allow that door to open. Thank you.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love about the Litany of Trust, which I didn't, again, foresee necessarily, it was only afterwards when I was praying it that it hit me. I was like, wow, this is really helping me with something very particular. And what it was helping with, because I usually would pray it at night, before I go to bed, as a kind of a type of examine in a way, to reflect
Yes.
on the day. But and
I often feel like I need to go to confession after, sister, to be honest.
It's what it was helping me with, and I didn't realize it till afterwards, that it's stopping two lies that really block my relationship with Jesus, and ultimately will affect my relationship with others, because the more we're reconciled with God, the easier it will be to accept and reconcile with others, right? And with myself. But it was stopping two lies, and the lies were that, God, you're not good. In some way, you're not good. And the second lie was that I'm not good. And a lot of the invocations of the litany are really crushing those lies from different angles. To say, actually, even though I'm a sinner, you pursue me with your love, and you can actually make my suffering fruitful, even though it feels meaningless to me right now. And that I'm not good, that I have to be better in some way to be loved, because those lies create kind of tension in our hearts and make us carry burdens that God never intended us to carry. And so I notice that praying this prayer, and especially if it's frequently, kind of takes the power out of those lies, that gets into our heart and into our blood in a way that's like, wait a second, I can recognize them much more and say, no, I'm not letting myself go down that, thought pattern or whatever. So it's been very helpful even in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are three of the invocations in a row that I wanted to ask you about this kind of set, not just about the litany, but the way that it applies to kind of human experience. So the three in a row, no coincidence, are from anxiety about the future, deliver me, Jesus. From resentment or excessive preoccupation with the past, deliver me, Jesus. And then from restless self-seeking in the present moment, deliver me, Jesus, right? So you've got this very clear past, future, present identification, this attention to time in the human experience. And we are large fans of Peter Kreeft in our family. We're reading his book, Jesus Shock, with our older kids for Lent right now. And Peter Kreeft talks a lot about the gift of the present, and that heaven is the eternal present. Mm-hmm. God is outside of time, which means God is present. And because of that, we can only be fully present to him in the present moment, that we can't be in the presence of God in the past, because we like to live there in our failures, in our achievements. We can't live with God in the future because that's not our reality yet. That's our dreams and our anxieties. But I love even the realization that merely being in the present doesn't necessarily mean that I'm being present to God, because the prayer talks about from restless self-seeking in the present moment, right? So can you speak a little bit to the value of a human person being fully present to God primarily, to the people around them, and what that real presence might look like?
Mm-hmm. Sure, that's excellent. Yeah, that invocation, the restless self-seeking in the present moment, afterwards I was like, what does that have to do with trust? I don't know where that came from. But it's actually so good, especially with our digital age and everything that's going on.
Yes.
I think that it's very true. We could be living the day, but not present at all. So I think that when I think about being present, again, everything starts with my relationship to Jesus. So even in my daily life and the daily moments of my life, I want to be present to God first and foremost, and in a way that's not anxiety producing, like, am I thinking about God, but just like living in the presence of God, right? because that helps us become aware of the reality of all that's around us, right? There's a certain listening, so to speak, that we're now aware of. When we look at a person that's talking to us, we can hear not only the words that they're saying, but we can see them, so to speak. And what, oh my goodness, you look like you're really worried, or you know what I mean? And so there's two little things that I like to think about with living the daily life. And they're kind of catchy, so it helps me. One is our best and our worst, and the second one is a little and often. So our best and our worst is, we really want to give God our best and our worst every day. We want to give him a whole day. But if we give him our best and our worst, if we're in those places, then we can kind of know that we're really living in a union with him, to be able to be aware of the presence of all that's being asked of us and people around us. And then also a little and often. So I read this, I think it was Eugene Boylan in This Tremendous Lover. He writes in his book just about living, prayer for people who are lay. So it's not necessarily for religious, but he says that we should be talking to Jesus a little and often throughout the day. A little and often, like as we're, on our way to class, or, in the supermarket, just instead of having a monologue in our thoughts, or texting somebody, just to be able to say what we're thinking or feeling to Jesus. And a little bit just right then and often, so he's talking about that. And that really helped me in my daily life, as I was maturing in my faith, and then our best and our worst. So I think that those two things can help us a little bit in our daily lives to stay in it with God. Like we were talking about the hard and the high and the hard that you all do, that we're really living those moments with Jesus, that we can praise and thank him in those places. For me, I think if my prayer is actually meeting God in the right place, then I actually feel like it flows into the rest of my day. So I'm not sure. It's hard for me to disconnect that presence with God with the presence to my daily life and my men. I also think that having a little bit of silence on a practical level also helps us. So whether that's right in the morning, everyone's life is very different, but having some space for silence in the day is going to help us become aware and attuned to the rest of the day. We all have busyness. Even in the convent, we have busy parts of our day. But our day is sporadically kind of mixed with some silence that allows us to live on that deeper level. And that deeper level not only includes the Holy Spirit, but it's our guardian angel who, as we're working, is like saying, hey, don't forget this. You're going to have to come back up here if you leave it, these little thoughts, inspirations that are helping us become present. And even in conversation, being able to say something that really helps another person that we couldn't have formulated on our own, right? That awareness, I think, can stem from that silence that can help us. So, there's a lot to say, but maybe a few things like that would help.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I talk to our kids often about bring everything to the Lord. Like when something goes well at school, or you get to sit next to who you want to sit at lunch today, or, whatever, quickly turn to him and give thanks. And when something's hard, when you feel like you just bombed that test, or, when so-and-so won't play with you on the playground or what have you. So that just feels like encouragement of that, of and I should maybe say it more plainly to them of there is nothing that is off limits for him. And that little and often is such a good, a call to humility too, of you don't need some grandiose, extemporaneous prayer, some beautiful prose. That's not just what he wants to hear. He wants to hear just even the little things. And that trust is built on those even micro actions. I think that's true in human relationships. And so why wouldn't that be true in this relationship with the divine as well? That trust between Pat and Kenna in this marriage isn't built on just how do you treat me on Valentine's Day? It's in the day in and day out, hour by hour. And that he asks for the same. He equips us for the same too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more thing, Pat, if you
hit it.
I don't know where we're at on time.
I had somewhere else to go, but you go.
Attention.
No,
okay.
I like your mind.
So I think something else, sister, when you were sharing with us about the writing of the litany and just this period of suffering out of which the litany came is that you said very clearly, yeah, this wasn't some like magic act, you guys. Like it didn't just solve all my stuff. And I think, Pat, do you have the litany still pulled up, honey?
I do. Mm-hmm.
I think about that toward the end of the litany, that you will teach me to trust you, that even the ability to trust in God, which is what this whole prayer has been about. And so it feels like, wait, what just happened? That like I'm acknowledging that even the ability to trust you is something that I need to receive as gift. And sister, then this, kind of awareness that the litany came out of this period of suffering, maybe even, I don't know, spiritual dryness or desolation, you would call it. That is where the Lord meets us, like in that poverty, in that lack. He wants to fill us up. And I was reflecting before we came on this morning about how in my own life, periods of immense spiritual growth have come out of times of desolation, times of suffering, times of feeling denied, like what I've been asking for. And so just aware of your ministry, sister, aware that you walk with people in real times of darkness, in suffering, feeling alone, feeling like they literally have no one else, right? In a critical moment in their human experience. And there you are, to be Christ to them. There the Sisters of Life are, to be Christ to them. Can you just maybe share even an anecdote, something that, has helped you to know like just how definitively Jesus is there with us, especially in these moments of poverty, especially in these moments of our human lack and want?
Yeah, I think the moments of the deepest affirmations of my life have come in moments of my poverty. Like I didn't feel like I was, a religious champ when I felt called to religious life. I hadn't actually made a really honest confession in a while, like things like that I'm like, wow, you want me like this? And then you must really want me, and even that moments where I just felt so thin inside and I just felt like my love was so lousy. And it was the moment where God was saying, no, I want your love. Actually, your love is good. And, I think about the gospel. I think about the anointing of Jesus. Here's this woman who everyone knows is not good company, not very marketable. And she's been loved by Jesus in a way that tells her that her love is good. And so good that she will publicly pour out all she has and give it to him. And it's just such a beautiful image, I think, and how the aroma fills the whole house, and how Jesus has let her alone. But what she has done will be told to the whole world, wherever this gospel is preached, that love is so other, and I do believe that God uses our weaknesses, that we touch the hem of his garment and he can cure us. He doesn't need much, but what he's asking for a crack of our heart to be open to him. And I've seen it before with women that we serve in my own life, of course, but, we can say, okay, you don't have to believe in it right now, but you can lean on my faith because I believe it, and they can look into my eyes and say, well, if you believe my love is good, well, maybe there is something to it, because we see people at their best and at their worst, right? There's just like God's seen us at our best and our worst, and he's still loving us. That gives this hope that everything that we've ever wanted to be true is true, that we are loved and it's unconditional. And I think really too, the power of this is that we are not victims of our circumstances. I didn't have a bad day because you were mean to me. I didn't have a bad year because my boss was awful to me. No, I have a choice to make. This is my life, and I can choose love wherever I am. Like we've been given a certain freedom as sons and daughters of God, that he's pouring his life into us, that we don't have to live that way, which binds us to fear and burdens and all these things, right? We are made to be free. And free to live that love no matter what the circumstances are. Even if we're Maximilian Kolbe in Auschwitz, right? We can choose to live love. And that is awesome. That gives a deep, deep hope, and penetrates places that only God's love can. So I've definitely seen that in my own life and in others.
It's very Therese of Lisieux of you to speak of great love in small things. It's beautiful. I want to, the final thing, I'm going to bring it all the way back to Faustina where we started.
Okay.
I've thought about this question in lots of different ways, just in my own prayer and kind of reflection over the years. I see your beautiful Divine Mercy image in the background there. And clearly your namesake, Saint Faustina, has a lot to do with the Divine Mercy revelations and Jesus's message of mercy for all of us. But it's always been a little bit fascinating to me that the message that he gave us under the image wasn't something like Lord have mercy, which is a very good Catholic invocation. We say that all the time. That would make perfect sense to me, right? No, the invocation is Jesus, I trust in you. So how would you describe the relationship between God's mercy and our trust in God?
Yeah, so the way that St. Faustina in the diary explains it, at least it's not a term that's kind of written out in the catechism, or I believe Thomas Aquinas, trust. But trust is a relational word, but it's the word that Jesus chooses in the Revelations very specifically with St. Faustina. And he asks for that prayer, Jesus, I trust in you, not even Jesus, I love you, to be inscribed on the bottom of that. And the way that it's described is that he's saying that trust is the vessel that pours this unconditional love, this mercy into our hearts. So he's got all this love for us, and it's unconditional, and he's God, but he will not force it because that's not love. But he is asking, so he's asking us to say, I trust in you, to open our hearts so that that love can rush in and literally carry us back home to the Father, right? So that prayer, that's why I think it's so pleasing to God, because it's so simple, and yet so hard to say. But I tell people, you know, when you're having a hard day, when you're in the midst of suffering, I want you to take out this image, and your biggest prayer is just to look at him looking at you right now. You feel awful, you feel depressed, you feel betrayed. You know, you feel angry, whatever you feel. I want you to take out that picture, and I want you to just look into his eyes, look at him looking at you in a stance of blessing as a father. And then if you want, you can say that prayer on the bottom. That's also a prayer, right? But this encounter with this merciful love, let it open your heart so that that love that is ours can be just rush in and we can claim it.
That's beautiful. That is a great invitation for all of us, that you can either double down on that, sister, or you can offer a different specific invitation. But we love to close all of our episodes with some kind of a thing for our listeners to do in response to this conversation. We call it a challenge by choice. You prefer the word invitation. It all adds up to a good thing that people can do if they choose. Is there something that you'd like to offer to our listeners?
Sure. I think something that helped me personally a lot, I'm going to throw it out there, it might help some of you, is something that God put on my heart, was at the end of the day to ask a simple question. And the question was, you know, where have I doubted my goodness today? And you might be like, you know, I'm fine. I don't really need to ask that question. But honestly, ask Jesus, where have I doubted my goodness today? Because I assure you, that is a place that he wants you to be loved and to receive his love more deeply. And we got our heart closed in that place. So that's a huge place if we really listen to that. And then if he puts something on our heart, we're not going to act like we're, you know, a big filing cabinet. We have to pull open the drawers and figure out what's wrong with me. No, we're going to ask Jesus and say, Jesus, where have I doubted my goodness today? And when he puts something on our heart, then to say, well, when I encounter that space again, can I be kind of aware and say, Jesus, oh gosh, here I am. Like, do you love me here? Can I have the courage? Ask for the grace of courage. Can you look at me here? What do you say now? How are you seeing me right now? Right? Can we walk into that space and start to receive love there? Because honestly, that is a huge place of transformation. That is quite simple, and a child can do that. You know, so that's my invitation.
That is beautiful. I am going on a little silent retreat this weekend, sister, and I'm going to take that with me all weekend long. Thank you for being my accidental spiritual director. I appreciate that. To close us out, sister, would you mind offering a prayer for us and for all those listening?
Well, my wondering is, do we want to just pray the litany? I mean, would you be...
Sure.
Is that okay?
That doesn't seem wild to me.
Sure.
Okay. Great. You've got it locked and loaded. So do we.
If you lead and we can respond.
Sure.
Beautiful. Thank you.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
From the belief that I have to earn your love,
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear that I am unlovable.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the false security that I have what it takes.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear that trusting you will leave me more destitute.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From all suspicion of your words and promises.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the rebellion against childlike dependency on you.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From refusals and reluctances in accepting your will.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From anxiety about the future.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From resentment or excessive preoccupation with the past.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From restless self-seeking in the present moment.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From disbelief in your love and presence.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of being asked to give more than I have.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the belief that my life has no meaning or worth.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From the fear of what love demands.
Deliver me, Jesus.
From discouragement.
Deliver me, Jesus.
That you are continually holding me, sustaining me, loving me.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That your love goes deeper than my sins and failings and transforms me.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That not knowing what tomorrow brings is an invitation to lean on you.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you are with me in my suffering.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That my suffering united to your own will bear fruit in this life and the next.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you will not leave me orphan, that you are present in your church.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That your plan is better than anything else.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you always hear me and in your goodness always respond to me.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you give me the grace to accept forgiveness and to forgive others.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you give me all the strength I need for what is asked.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That my life is a gift.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you will teach me to trust you.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That you are my Lord and my God.
Jesus, I trust in you.
That I am your beloved one.
Jesus, I trust in you.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Sister Faustina Maria Pia, thank you so much for your vocation, for your great ministry, for your time with us today, and for all of your wisdom and faith. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, it was a joy, and thank you, and I'll be praying for your ministry and for your retreat.
Please. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Great listeners. Great to have you with us. We would love to hear your thoughts on the trust in God, trust in other people. We will obviously post the Litany of Trust and a link to that in the show notes, so you can access that, as well as Sister's book, The Retreat with the Litany of Trust, so you can check that out as well. You can find us at thiswholelifepodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram at thiswholelifepodcast. And we will see you next time, trusting listeners, on This Whole Life. God bless you.
You're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone.
This Whole Life is a production of the Martin Center for Integration. Visit us online at thiswholelifepodcast.com.